Renard Johnson will have officially been on the job for 9 months in the coming weeks, so going on 10 months now, and he assumed office back on January 6th of this year. Now, if you'll remember, the city of El Paso adopted their new budget under Mayor Johnson and the new look city council back in August. The new fiscal year for the city of El Paso started on September 1st. And joining us now is Mayor Renard Johnson. Mayor Johnson, thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with us here today. Through your first 9 and now almost 10 months on the job, what has emerged as the top priority for you as the mayor of the city of El Paso?
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I've gone on almost 9 months and being in the office, and it's been real exciting. A lot of things have taken place, and for the first 9 months, what I was trying to do is get a good understanding of how the city functions, work with the different departments here at the city, build relationships with my city council. So now that I've gotten all that in place, now I'm focusing on my 4 pillars, and that's economic development, public safety, infrastructure, and quality of life. So those are the things that I'm really focused on right now. But it's been a real fast-paced 9 months, and I got to tell you, I had to put my seatbelt on because it was like drinking out of a fire hose, learning all this. Because, as you know, I come from private industry, so coming into the municipal government was a big change.
And when we talk about one of your pillars being economic development and bringing businesses to El Paso, what do they tell you they need from city government to make that happen? And what areas would you say that the city may fall short on that they need to improve in order to generate that?
Yeah, so when you're recruiting companies to come to El Paso, they're going to ask you a couple things. If I'm bringing my family, and I'm just make up a city, say I'm bringing my family from San Diego, California. When you come to El Paso, you're going to want to know, hey, how are the school systems here in El Paso? How's the quality of life? What is there to do for my family once we show up to El Paso? What is the safety like? How safe is your city? And God forbid, something happens to one of my family members, what's your healthcare system like? So I can tell you, if you look at last week, Steve and Nancy Fox, we just broke ground on the Steve and Nancy Fox Cancer Treatment Center, which is going to be about a $340 million center here in El Paso, which is a game changer in the area of healthcare. We are investing at the city in an additional 3 additional police academies that will happen this year. So we're certainly hitting on public safety. And then when you look at some of the other areas, we got to work on our school systems. And they ask, what is there to do in El Paso? And if you look at when we had, let's just take a look at the Coldplay concert. The Coldplay concert was a huge boost for economic activity here in El Paso. It had about a $6 million impact on our city. So we've got to continue to do those things because that's what you're hearing from companies as they want to relocate to El Paso. And the other challenge we have is they're asking for more flights in and out of El Paso. So if you look at El Paso International Airport, we finally have an international flight that's going to be going to Chihuahua. So we got to work on our flights, we got to work on more quality of life, make sure we're a safe city, and all of those things are the secret sauce to doing a lot of the economic development.
During your campaign, Mayor, property taxes was a priority for voters. It was also a priority for you as well. You've since passed your first budget as mayor now. Do you feel like there is progress that has been made? And our taxes, are they still too high in El Paso?
Yeah, and Andy, thank you for that question. Property taxes, when we knocked on doors when I was campaigning, that was probably the #1 thing we heard in the community is our taxes are too high. And, I'm a taxpayer too, so, I feel the pain and I know what it's like to pay the taxes. So I think we've got to do a much better job of getting those lowered. And you got to remember that the taxes, I'm 8 months into office. This is something that has been happening a long time before I got here. And I've always said that, we need to come up with a plan on lowering your property taxes, and we're doing that. And the only way you can truly do that is bring in economic development and bring in more businesses to start offsetting the residential property taxes. And we've been really aggressive here at the city doing that. So I think it's going to take some time, but I can tell you that I think we are moving the needle, and we've got to look at more economic drivers. Like, there's an opportunity we're going to have as a city that we're going to have to look at real hard, and that's going to be the deck plaza. When you look at the deck plaza over the next 20 to 30 years, that can have about a $1.5 billion impact on this community. So those are the game changers that will help ultimately lower your taxes. But it's going to take time, and we got to be patient because we didn't get into this hole overnight. But we got to come up with a plan that will get us out of this hole in property taxes.
And you mentioned the downtown deck plaza. That's the proposal that you've been a big supporter of. But how do you get more El Pasoans on board with this vision, especially if it's ultimately going to cost taxpayers in the end, something we just said it's too high on to begin with? I know there's got to be some sort of balance between the two.
Yeah, so you know, when we're looking at, we asked earlier about how do you do the economic development, and we said, we need to recruit people that want to come to cities like El Paso, and they're going to want more quality of life, and that will certainly add, the quality of life that we're looking for. It's going to have more open space, more green space, more bike trails, more, food trucks, more open space for us to go out and enjoy as El Pasoans. But what we've got to do is, and I will say this again, I don't think that project should fall completely on the backs of the taxpayers. We need to look at public-private partnerships. We need to look at federal grants. We need to look at state grants. We need to look at a number of funding mechanisms to get that done. And I think we can do that as a community. One of the things we got to remember, Andy, is that TxDOT is going to widen I-10 whether we want that to happen or not. And what they're asking us at this moment is, do you want us to put in the infrastructure that can hold a deck plaza on top? And I think the answer to that is yes, and I know the answer to that is yes. So that's where we're at in the planning process, and this is going to give not only my kids but their kids an opportunity to have more open space and more green space here in El Paso, which will also help with economic development.
Mayor, I'll get you out of this with this one. What's the best part about your job, and what accomplishment right now are you most proud of in your first 9 months in office? I get asked that a lot, and I got to tell you, the best part of this job for me is meeting the people and getting to interact with so many different people. I had a group here yesterday that just really touched me. They were young kids that were cancer survivors, and I will be able to take that with me for the rest of my life, the stories that they shared with me and how they motivated me. So I think it's being out in the community. I think it's being embraced by people here in El Paso, and that has just been a really, really true gift of being the mayor. And again, I'm enjoying myself, and I'm enjoying meeting the people everywhere I go. I had a couple of speeches today. We started Startup Week this week for small businesses, so I had an opportunity to talk to small startup companies here in El Paso, which will ultimately grow into larger companies, I hope, here. But those are the things that have been really, really rewarding for me as a mayor. Mayor Johnson, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. We certainly look forward to speaking to you in the future. And coming up.